This episode is brought to you by Audi. The road is calling. Embrace the thrill of the drive with the all-new, fully electric Audi Q6 e-tron. Featuring effortless power, serious acceleration, and advanced Audi tech. It's not just a new EV. It's a new way to experience driving. The all-new, fully electric Audi Q6 e-tron is here. The next chapter of Audi starts now.
I can say to my new Samsung Galaxy S25 Ultra, hey, find a keto-friendly restaurant nearby and text it to Beth and Steve. And it does, without me lifting a finger. So I can get in more squats anywhere I can. 1, 2, 3.
Will that be cash or credit?
Credit. 4.
Galaxy S25 Ultra, the AI companion that does the heavy lifting so you can do you. Get yours at Samsung.com. Compatible with select apps. Requires Google Gemini account. Results may vary based on input. Check responses for accuracy.
I was never really a runner. The way I see running is a gift, especially when you have stage 4 cancer. I'm Anne. I'm running the Boston Marathon, presented by Bank of America. I run for Dana-Farber Cancer Institute to give people like me a chance to thrive in life, even with cancer.
Join Bank of America in helping Anne's cause. Give if you can at BofA.com/supportAnne. What would you like the power to do? References to charitable organizations is not an endorsement by Bank of America Corporation. Copyright 2025.
You're listening to the Animation Addicts podcast with the Rotoscopers, episode 306, The Boys, the Sherman Brothers story. Welcome to the Animation Addicts podcast with the Rotoscopers, the #1 place to get your animation fix with animation addicts just like you. Each episode, we dive into the wonderful world of animation featuring Disney, DreamWorks, Pixar, and everything in between. From hilarious discussions and movie reviews to interviews with industry insiders, this show's mission is to brighten your day through our love of animation. So hop on your nerdy couch, grab some snacks, and get ready to hang out with your animation besties because it's time to dive into today's episode.
Hey there, animation addicts. I'm Morgan Stradling.
And I'm Chelsea Robson.
And we're back today for another fabulous episode of the Animation Addicts podcast. This is the first time Chelsea and I have actually recorded in quite a while. It may not seem like it to you, but it has been nearly 2 months for us because Chelsea has wanderlust and she has been a world traveler the past few months.
I have. So,
welcome back.
Thank you.
Well, no, but you're still gone.
I am.
She's recording in a closet.
As one does when one tries to escape the
the troubles of palace life.
Yeah, so right now I am in South Carolina and I brought my dog. We did a 5 days of just cross-country traveling on the open road. And I took my dog and it was just the two of us and we went and visited. I have a niece in Austin, Texas, stopped there for a night. And then I went to Atlanta and I was there for 2 days and then continued on again. And I ended up in South Carolina to visit another cousin. And so I'm going to be here for a little bit longer. So I will be recording from this closet once again, probably next episode. And yeah, Morgan can see my little puppy in the background.
And there she is.
Yes, there she is. Yeah, so this is how we do it these days. You know, we try when I know or either of us knows that we're going to be like, hey, I'm not going to be able to record over the next couple of weeks. We tend to do a lot of batches of episodes so that we can keep things pumping.
Yes, and you might be thinking, wait, why now for the Sherman Brothers tribute? And I'm thinking the same thing. But when the news came that Richard Sherman had passed, which was in May, that's when Chelsea was gone at this point and really gone, you know. So, well, not that far gone, but she was.
I was in Europe.
In Europe, yeah. And so I meant gone as in dead. You weren't that gone, you know. You weren't that far gone as on drugs and unredeemable, if you will. I mean, a few steps beyond that.
Yeah.
And yeah, so we said, okay, we added this to our list, and we said as soon as we're done batching all of our episodes, just to make it easy for Chelsea, so she can actually enjoy life and vacation. She's not putting in emergency episodes. This was an important episode, but we gave her time. And so I'm really excited that we're able to do this because the Sherman brothers, Richard and Robert Sherman, are so foundational and crucial and monumental to the history of not only the Disney company, but Disney animation. And so it seemed
And our
appropriate.
childhoods.
And our childhood, yes. I said a prayer before this episode that I'd be able to hold it together and not cry because
oh my gosh,
there was so much crying happening as I was watching The Boys, as I was going back and listening to all their old songs. And so hopefully I can hold it together because this is I get very sentimental and nostalgic with these guys.
Yes. And today we are going to be discussing a documentary that was put together by Jeffrey C. Sherman and Gregory V. Sherman, who are the sons of Robert and Richard Sherman. Is it respectively? Like who belongs to whom? I'm not exactly sure, but
wait, I can see because it lists their sons' personal life.
Okay.
So Richard had Gregory Vincent.
Okay.
So Gregory was Richard's and Jeffrey was Robert's.
There you go. And both of them decided to undertake this labor of love and put together a documentary on, like a real, true documentary on these guys' lives. And man, I
want to talk about it.
Yeah. So get your emotionally tissues ready because here we go. Like this one hit me hard as well. I cried as well.
Lowe's knows what makes SpringFest savings even better are member-only doorbuster deals. Right now, rewards members can save $40 on an Allen & Roth Chesler Gold faucet. Was $99, now $59. Plus, save $110 on a Cobalt 40-volt battery trimmer and blower combo kit. Was $279, now $169. Lowe's, we help, you save. Valid through 3/24 while supplies last. Program subject to terms and conditions. Details at lowes.com/terms. Subject to change.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. When your computer breaks, you don't wait for it to magically start working again. You fix the problem. So why wait to hire the people your company desperately needs? Use Indeed's sponsored jobs to hire top talent fast. And even better, you only pay for results. There's no need to wait. Speed up your hiring with a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
Uh-oh, the last cookie.
You can get a new box of cookies in as fast as an hour with Walmart Express Delivery.
Are you my guilty self-conscience?
No, I'm the voice offering you promo code EXPRESS for free delivery on your first order.
Hey, who ate my cookies?
You mean, these cookies?
Order now. Welcome to your Walmart. Promotion valid for first express delivery order. $50 minimum subject to availability. Restrictions apply.
These Sherman brothers, I think it was appropriate that we are structuring our discussion about them and our tribute to their lives and their work. This amazing documentary that was put together by their sons, like you said, in 2009. I mean, when you initially sent me the link, you said, okay, you need to watch this for the episode and watch The Boys. I was so confused because there is an Amazon Prime show called The Boys, which is more of a political, I guess I'm not too up on it, but I think it's a political satire of kind of like modern American politics. And it's about superheroes in a way. And I'm like, what? What are you watching? And then I connected, there's this other thing called The Boys. So it's funny to me. The proper title of this, The Boys, The Sherman Brothers Story. I could do our normal stuff. Obviously, it was directed by Gregory V. Sherman, Jeffrey C. Sherman, produced by quite a few people. There's like 12 different people who are listed as either producers or executive producers. Ben Stiller is one of the producers, which he had a few moments where he was talking. And before I knew he was a producer, I was like, why?
Yeah,
why
exactly.
him? Like, why is he here? There
Why
could be
you?
so many more people, but he's paying for it, so whatever.
Right.
And it was released May 22nd, 2009. Box office, I mean, it's documentary. It wasn't really expected to do very much, but 55,000. And now you can find it on its permanent home for now on Disney Plus, which is a very, very, very appropriate place for it. It's 101 minutes long, so they don't cut corners. It's not just a quick thing. They really give it the time that it needs to tell the story and to breathe. And if you go in, you say, hey, we're going to do we're going to talk about the life of the Sherman brothers. And if you're just going to be talking about their work and their songs, you would be having a completely different discussion versus if you knew the history between the brothers and maybe watched this documentary, read one of their autobiographies or biographies. There is one, which the guy who wrote it was in this. And I thought, oh, that'd be really interesting to read. I wish I would have known about this before, 3 hours before recording. But if you wouldn't have known about the feud, we would be having a totally different discussion. We'd be talking about supercalifragilisticexpialidocious and all the fun, jubilant times. And now, after having seen this and seen kind of what happened behind the scenes, I was very despondent upon watching the movie.
Yeah, when this came out, and this is also other like levels for me, like so many levels of crying for me that were involved in this. Yeah, and I just remember when this came out, and I was I think I'm not going to go into my own reasons for crying because I won't hold it together either. Yeah, I just remember talking about it and just being with someone and just being so like just hurt. Not hurt like as in like how dare you, but it's just like my heart hurt for the situation because of how this came out in 2009, as you said, and I remember talking about it then and having like this conversation just like, oh, that just hurts so much that this would be the whole backstory of these guys that are have such a tender spot in my heart.
Yeah, 3 years before Robert dies. And someone mentions this in one of the interviews, but they say, you think someone has such a fairy tale life, and they literally did. They worked for Walt Disney and they wrote stories and songs that were fairy tales and movies, Disneyland, just this picturesque life. But sometimes the real life that people have isn't this fairy tale behind the scenes. And that really kind of sums up the Sherman brothers, is that they put on a happy face and they did the job. But as far as when it came to their personal lives and beyond, it was a sadder story. And so, I mean, I want to talk about like their work, but then I think let's just talk about the feud. Let's just talk about this and try to hash it out. So we can kind of move on, which in my mind, I'm like, why didn't this happen? What happened here? And what I think is so sad is the cousins. So the cousins, the two brothers of the two sons of the brothers, they grew up basically not knowing each other. They lived 7 blocks apart and they lived separate lives, and they would see each other at premieres and they would sit on completely different sides of the theater. And even one of the sisters was like, it was just so odd. It's like, why is our family this way? And children know, and children recognize.
Oh yeah.
And for me and you, I mean, we have such strong relationship with our cousins and our family. My strongest memories growing up are just the consistency of getting together with family once or twice a month for family dinner or activities, going camping every summer. And those are my happiest, best memories, because family's really all you got at the end of the day, right? And so, especially cousins, when that's like a rock that you have. And family, there can be drama, but like they're always there for you. And I know everyone's situation is totally different, but because they're blood, right?
Right.
And so seeing that these brothers didn't have that opportunity, and they met each other, much later on, we're able to sit and talk as they were adults. It seemed like they were almost in their 50s. They might have mentioned it. Maybe it was at one of the premieres of like the Mary Poppins musical, or it was like decades later than when this should have happened. And they got together and they started talking.
Like, so why are we like this?
Yeah, and actually had a relationship, and like they had no beef. And so it's like when people find out they have a long lost sister or brother, it's like they don't care. It's like, let's just talk and there's that bond there. And they had this bond. And so I hate it because they said, initially we thought, hey, we can tell the story of our fathers in this documentary because it needs to be told, and they have such a grand, expansive life work. And we thought maybe it would bring them together. And they don't. Do they say? But it didn't. But they leave it right there, and then each of the brothers has their own line at the end that says, "Yeah, I wouldn't have done life any other way. Like it worked out the way that it did." And so it was like really just like this bitter, sweet ending, kind of bitter, where it's
they
like,
called it a Greek tragedy.
Yes,
in the end.
and it was a Greek tragedy. It was sad that this relationship of the brothers whatever happened was never able to resolve. So what do you think happened? Because they don't say, and I think part of it is Robert. And I'm not pointing fingers at Robert. Robert is a very complex character. He's not a character. He's a person.
I think I figured it out. First, I want to go in and say, like, so as I'm watching this, there's a little bit of a funny moment because my brother wants to put together a documentary on my parents' life, which would be like quite the story.
Yes.
My parents are only about 15 years or so younger than Bob. My parents were not involved in World War II, right? So my mom's parents and my dad's parents both were. But anyway, so I'm in the middle of a similar kind of project as what this is. And so I'm watching this just thinking, oh my gosh, of all the many file types that they're having to do file transfers from. And like you've got reel to reels, you've got 8 tracks, you got tapes and digital, and then you have to find all of them. You have to sort the actual cassettes and the cases, and then you have to watch them and rewatch them, and then you also have to, watch all the content in order to sort those and then decide, okay, where you're going to put it. Like just so much. And it's like all of that labor of love. And their kids thought that it would all be worth it if their dads could be friends again. And that just like, oh, it killed me at the end. Like really killed me. But I think I know what happened. So first off, Bob was in World War II at 17 years old. And you cannot, like, he talked about how he was the first American to step foot into one of these concentration camps. And, like, you cannot unsee stuff like that. And at 17 years old, he's like, yeah, when I got home, I tried to calm down a bit and I had a couple emotional breakdowns, but I tried to get over it. But it's like, no, he did not. Like he's had major PTSD untreated, and you can't, that generation was harder to like harder to tell that you need help, like psychological help after something like that.
It was just shape up. Be a man, shake it off.
Yes. And I mean, you can't judge him because of what he went through. And there was a point where Richard was also drafted into the army, but he never saw any kind of battle, and he led the band. And so like you can just see the difference of Bob looking at Richard and being just like, we are not the same, and they weren't. And it's very important to say that, because I don't think that you can take Bob away from the PTSD that he probably had forever and had to deal with. I have some friends who are veterans, and I mean it really changes you, and it's something that you have to be really well aware of, that this is something that needs its own version of help that World War II guys never got. So that's one. And then two, there was a point in time where Richard left his first wife, and he kind of shakes it off as if, well, we never would have been happy, and I just wanted to be a songwriter, and she wanted me to join the laundromat, and so we just never would have been happy. And so Bob comes in and helps Richard take all his stuff out of his wife's house to leave his wife without really.
We get no answers, and
without a great answer.
And here's the problem when you do documentaries from an unbiased perspective. The brothers, they want to save the legacy of their dads, and really paint it in as good of a light as they can. While also showing the sad side of the rift. But that, like, immediately I was like, wait, huh?
Yeah. And
they just sweep it under the rug.
Right. And they don't really, like, that in itself is going to leave a mark. I'm just saying, like, emotionally, these occurrences leave a mark. And the fact that Bob kind of, I don't know if he looked down on Richard for it or whatever, but it's like in him, he was like, you owe me, kid. And obviously there's a bit of there was a strife in that moment. And then, but that was, when they lived together, and that was after that point. So that helped in their connection as a songwriting duo. But then later on, it was the moment when Bob had a bit of a mental breakdown. And I don't think that he just told Richard, I need you to help me. and get my stuff together. I just need to get away. And so Richard goes in to Bob's wife's house, gets Bob's clothes, and just like takes all the stuff out for, and he said, I did it for my brother, and it was that moment when I think that it goes back to another line that was a little bit earlier on that said, never let the wives socialize. A partnership of four is no longer a partnership. And I think that there was contention between the wives, or at least the wives to the brother, to like specifically Bob's wife to Richard, because she felt, I'm conjecture, right? But I think that she thought that because he came in and got the clothes, and it was just something that like Richard, he was kind of like returning the favor that happened to Richard earlier on in his life. And so he just came in and got the clothes. And then I think that it was at that moment because she thought that all of the issues maybe that Bob had that were actually connected to his time in the war were all connected. Like Richard was just the scapegoat for that. That's what makes sense to me. I don't, once again, this is a conjecture. I don't know, but those make a lot of sense when I put it into that side. And man, it was just, I felt so bad for both sides because there's a point in time where it's explained that Richard is like a fun loving and like very nostalgic. And he was the guy that, but also like they were just very opposites. And then Robert is a serious but task oriented and deeply hurt by his, past. But also he was like this editor of sorts. So Richard was the idea guy. Robert was the let's bring it all together, bring it down to earth guy. I just don't think that he realized how much PTSD or from the war had affected him. I just don't think that was ever acknowledged. I mean, it kind of was maybe later when he was in his painting years.
And so he took it off. He took it out on the brother.
I think that
we never got to understand what his relationship with his parents. Did that change at all? They were kind of like, had this dad who was an incredible songwriter.
He said he loved his dad and he was very proud of his dad. And his dad, it was also said that his dad was one that kept them together. There were a couple forces that kept bringing Richard and Robert together. And then after a while, those forces were no longer like giving them jobs or putting them in the same room. And so that's when Robert was just like, I'm just going to go away. And there was the line said that Richard was the nostalgic and Robert was the romantic. And people think that those are the same, but they're actually quite different because the nostalgic person hopes that nothing will ever change. And the romantic hopes against hope that someday they will. And so very different in that. But I guess this is just my like my whole thing of like people need therapy, especially if you go to war. Like war is bad, like just all of it, everything about it I hate. But looking at their story, I felt like there was just a lot of untold things that neither of them knew about each other and PTSD.
Yeah. And maybe because they were men, they just didn't necessarily talk it out, work through that. It's just sad to see a rift like this go on and on and on. And in the end, it was not resolved. No happy ending. So very much a Greek tragedy. And I think you are right. I think it really does stem from the war. I'm surprised they didn't try to call that out more.
Yeah.
They mention it here and there. The painting helped me work through some of it, but yeah. Okay, so that's the backstory behind them. So with all this brewing underneath, they get it together and they're able to work and they end up basically becoming one of the most iconic songwriting duos in history, I would say. And then especially Disney history. And, what's interesting is what you think that the Sherman brothers had this long, illustrious career with Disney. And in a way they did. they've done things in the 60s and the 70s and even the
Right.
Tigger movie in 2000, right? But the main bulk of what they are known for when you think of their songs are really in just a 10-year period, if not a 5 to 6 year period with Walt specifically, because some of
Yeah.
these other movies are released, posthumously after his death. And so they were already in production and working on them, and they just ended up getting released later. But it's crazy to think that during this small period, they were able to contribute a huge amount to the theme parks, to different live action and animated movies and TV shows, The Wonderful World of Color and other things they're able to do. It was just phenomenal what they were able to do. And, one of the reasons for that is that they were staff writers, something that
Yeah.
I don't think is really a common thing anymore, especially in the
Oh no.
contractor world where it's like, we don't want people on staff, we'll just pay them as needed. But I think this really goes to show valuing people and having them as an employee that's dedicated to just you and your company to have for whatever purposes you need. How amazing that Walt Disney it was a different work environment, and
Mhm.
he was able to have them on staff, bring them in and say, hey, I need a song for this. Hey, we're doing the 1964 World Fair. Can you help me come up with a song for this? And they were right there. They had their piano and they worked. They got the job done. And they were obviously phenomenal writers and lyricists, songwriters that they could kind of bust these things out. We're not given like timelines, but some songs it appears that they just like write it within a day. Others obviously I think
Yeah.
they workshop
Like
a
an
lot
hour.
more, but they are amazing.
Yeah. They talked about, that you have to have a very clear idea. It's got to be very simple, sentimental, and happy.
Yes.
It's like something. And the other part that like really made me cry was at the very end when it said that all the songs in this were written by Al Sherman and his boys. And it just
Yes.
like, oh, oh my
Yes.
gosh.
Yes.
It was so much. So they had a dad who was a songwriter to an
Mhm.
extent, had like maybe one or two big hits, and Bob was so proud of him and was like, "Yeah, my dad wrote a cool song," And then when they started jumping in and they wrote a song for Gene Autry, like that's amazing. And
Ah,
then came up on like one little bit of like trouble. And his dad was like, if this is all it's gonna take to get you out of the game, you might as well just get out of the game now. Otherwise, you
mhm.
just got to keep workshopping and you got to keep, showing up on people's doors. And so that's what they did. They ended up getting a meeting with Disney, said, can we have 30 minutes of his time? And then they were there for 2.5 hours. And they had been working on Mary Poppins. They had both underlined the same situations, the same things, and there was clearly a connection between the two groups, between Walt Disney and the boys, and they hit it off. I loved how at the end when they were talking about how after Walt died, it was just like he's like Bob was like, I loved that man. And like
Yes.
that was super, super tender. And just how oh my gosh, this movie, man. It just gets me.
Their relationship with Walt Disney is interesting because you don't get a lot of it in here. It seems
Hmm.
kind of transactional from the way that it's portrayed. Like Walt
Uh-huh.
would come in, say, I needed a song, and, do it. It didn't seem like he really prodded in their personal life very much. Who knows?
Yeah.
At least that's the vibe that I
I
got
mean,
from the
I don't think
documentary.
he would. Yeah.
Yeah, or it just was he was more of like this is the job and let's get it done and they worked together and obviously there were these tender moments, when he would come in and play the song, and
Right.
he know exactly what he was talking about and yeah, cuz he was a important guy, he had a lot going on and the fact that he was able to work so well with them and spotted them for the talent that they were was incredible. And I think what's really interesting is that they get started and they end up writing songs for Annette Funicello initially. And can I just say, if autotune existed back then, it would be Annette Funicello. Doesn't she have the
Yes.
strangest voice that feels like it has been synthesized to a way? Like,
Yes, it
nah, nah,
does.
and the monkey's uncle, yeah, yeah. She has this just like,
But by the way, when that song came on, it just took me back to that Disney playlist I had on
yes.
that iPod that I was just like, this is such a random song, but I
Well,
love
the
it
reason
so
I had that
much.
on there was because there was the collection of these Disney what were they called? Best of Disney CD. I'm gonna look them up. They were called Disney Classics, and there was volume Disney Classic Volume 1, 3, 4. They ended up doing 5 of them. and these were early 2000s. It says 60 years of musical magic. And it's just, after I watched the documentary, I then went and there's the same year the Sherman Brothers songbook was released. It was a 2-part CD. It has 59 songs on it. Not every single song that they released. For example, for Mary Poppins, there's about 3 of the songs. And there's like others, like Let's Go Fly a Kite and the Laughing song that are off. We've tried looking to find like an actual list of every single Sherman Brothers song ever on Spotify. I can't seem to find it, and I want it ordered chronologically. I'm just gonna have to do this myself. Every single time I'm like, I need this playlist that's in this order, and it doesn't exist. And I'm like, why? Like I'll look up a Disney animated, and then they have random songs that aren't Disney. It's like Anastasia.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, you do not count. Get out of here. I love you so much, but and I just don't have the time. I don't care enough to create a Spotify playlist. But now I'm like, I got to be my own Sebastian. If you want something done, you've got to do it yourself. Anyways, so these Disney classics, I'll include a link in the show notes. There, you can buy them anywhere from like $20 to $30 now, which is funny.
Yeah.
Prime, they can deliver it next day. But volume 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. I mean, there was the maroon one, the green one, the blue one, the purple one, and it's surprising because as I was listening to the Sherman Brothers playbook, so many of these Sherman Brothers songs that were from really kind of bizarre things, the monkey's uncle, the red, yellow, green, red, blue, 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 red, purple, green, yellow, like these just songs, the Burl Ives song, like on the front porch, or like the Ugly Bug Ball, just like this wave of memories, just going places with my family in the car. Like we listened to this so much. And I didn't even realize they were Sherman Brothers just because they were kind of these like one-off random Disney songs that appeared on this CD. Some of these I have watched, Happiest Millionaire, Search of the Castaways, and some of these Haley Mills films. It just, it was just so much happiness as I was listening to all of these songs.
Yeah. Everything that popped up was just like, oh my gosh, it's you.
Yeah.
Yes. The time that they were working on Mary Poppins, they were obviously like, they were really figuring out how to work together in such a high pace, and there's all these like job listings on, if you ever look stuff up, it's like works well in high paced environments. I'm like, I don't think any of us actually understand what high paced environment was.
Sure.
if you were dealing with these two guys at Disney in the 60s, like there's just how much are you working together? And I do appreciate that they showed how they did quarrel quite a bit when they were in the midst of creating that. And the quote that I thought was just very good was, "The crucible of creativity in this relationship is conflict." And I just, like sometimes you really do have to be able to have a person that you don't mince words with, you don't try to be politically correct with, you just say, what do you, and you're both able to move on and move toward the goal. Because it's not about one or the other. I liked how they also focused on that toward the end. It's like, they're like, yeah, you guys aren't really going to be a thing without each other. So don't let there be a competition between you. And they did focus on that through the whole thing. It's like when there was never any sibling rivalry in the writing room. It was just a creativity moment.
Very, very wise advice, that it wasn't, you need to get the recognition above each other. It was kind of like, the Olsen twins. There was a period where they were like struggling to become their own person.
Yeah.
And they just like kind of, they do their own thing now. But what was smart about the Sherman Brothers is they didn't try to elevate one or the other. They didn't do the Justin Timberlake thing of like, I'm the star. I mean, Richard Sherman did go on and write some things for Christopher Robin, the movie, but that's after his brother died. It wasn't possible anymore. It wasn't, I'm going to go off on my own and do this without you, because he really understand the nature. Now, I will say some of the conflict is obvious in some acceptance speeches and interviews. Richard being this very
verbose,
not verbose, but he's definitely an extrovert and he has a lot of energy. He butts in.
Can't stop himself.
He cuts off Robert. When Robert's in the middle of,
as I'm doing that to you.
When Robert, he's a little slower paced and he has things to say, but he's going to do it his own way. And Richard would just butt in and say his thing, and he just couldn't help himself. And you could see Robert did not appreciate it, especially in one of
Right.
the Oscar speeches that they were giving. He was thanking people, and then Richard butts in and like thanks a bunch of other people. And I think that definitely could get annoying over time.
Yeah. If at one point in time you are looking at each other and you have this pain that you're going through, and I don't know, I really do feel like he didn't know where to put his pain from the PTSD, and so who did he put it on but the guy that was right next to him? And because, when you're young and there's still a lot going on, there's a lot of room, there's a lot of things that can go around that can pad it so that it's not the only thing of the relationship. But then as things go on, like he didn't have other things outside of work that kept that pad going as far as why they were together.
Mhm.
And so it's like if that relationship only is the one subject and you find these other things that start getting under your skin, it's really easy to let those things fester and get bigger and bigger and bigger until they just encompass everything.
Yeah. That's
And I think,
why it's important. Forgiveness is
yeah,
important, just to kind of, and if you've ever truly forgiven someone for something that was really bothering you, it is such a freeing feeling when you finally let that go. That makes you think, wow, why did I not let this happen sooner? Why was I so stuck in and dug my heels in that I didn't just forgive this person? Sometimes they're really dumb things. Um,
mhm.
it sets you free.
It does. It does. And I mean,
And I'm not placing any blame on
no.
anyone and not trying to preach. This is more to myself, lessons
Yeah.
learned that I can apply to my life.
Yeah. I mean, there's lots of moments in my life that I'm just like, yeah, I held on to that one way too long.
Yeah.
You know? And like, what was the point of that?
Yeah, but you look
And
back and you're like, what a wasted energy and
yeah,
mindset to be in, and just time, which is so fleeting. Like, we're sitting here looking at the end of their lives and it's over. And this is
yeah,
all that's to show, and it goes so quickly.
it does. I feel like this is something that it's a good thing to watch and to know because it's like even though like going back to the crucible of creativity, it's like sometimes those you if you come out of it, out of that crucible, then you're able to be stronger and you're able to, maybe there is a moment where you only have all the other things in the past kind of faded away, and then you only have the one thing, and then you're able to come out of it and continue to find other things that you have in common or continue to find other things to kind of add new history to. I feel like adding new history to a relationship is going to help is a way to help in those kind of situations, like just
Mhm.
saying let's just start a new chapter and a new thing around a different subject around a different thing. So
Yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, I don't know, it's hard, we're obviously talking in generalities, but it's like in this situation, in like and like in every friendship, in Morgan and I's friendship, all the things, like we've had moments where it's like you have to find other things that expand the relationship.
Yeah.
That's a better word.
It was really sad when they said after Walt Disney died, it all the jobs just dried up. No one was
Hmm.
coming to us anymore. And that is just the nature of business, unfortunately, when there are these shakeups that happen, whether it's because of a death or new management. And you could be the rock star, amazing creators have done so much. But when the new people come in, if they sometimes because they want to make their mark, they want to bring in their people. And
Right.
people that are associated with the old leader become, persona non grata. And
Right.
and I've experienced this in the corporate world where there was kind of a merger acquisition that happened. And as a result, the new company, oddly, we were reporting to the new company, within our company. And anyone that was part of the old was just gone for no reason, even though, I was having my best year ever and the product was on high, and it was just
Yeah.
absolutely wild and made no sense. And having many years, apart from it, and you see it other places. It's
Uh-huh.
just human nature that you think I'm going to build my team, I'm going to have my people. It's like I would have been absolutely loyal and done, exactly what I needed to do and I kept going, but for some reason people feel threatened
Yeah.
by what was before. And so it broke my heart really for them that they had done so many great things for Disney with the theme parks and the movies and just these songs. I mean, you had these incredible guys on staff and you could have said, "Hey, we're doing this new movie and we're in a real big rut right now. Can you help elevate it? Since
Right.
you know what's worked in the past. Mary freaking Poppins."
Right.
And they were just discarded and eventually they left. And then they go and do Chitty Chitty Bang Bang.
Okay, also that movie, and to be followed up like right up after that being Bedknobs and Broomsticks, I am sure for Bob was just a joke
Yeah.
because they
Mhm.
they treated World War, I mean, these once again, this is a younger
Yes, yes.
generation. So this is like the Vietnam era,
Yes.
and people, and it's like where they don't really,
They
none
did
of
not
them
respect
saw.
that war. We're not here to talk about the pros and cons of that war, but it was not well received by the public, and it was just like the severity and the gravity of war
Right.
wasn't the
And
same for this generation.
no, it wasn't. And both of those movies, but for him, it's like there was a point when Angela Lansbury is being interviewed, and she's just like, none of us knew what his
Mhm,
experience
mhm.
in World War II was. And so I am sure him doing these movies was just a joke. And I am paraphrasing what she said, but it really was, especially if you look at, okay, I saw death on people and walking into concentration camps where people have been starved and are just like gaunt and like just it's a whole nother world, a whole other reality. And like now you're having to write songs about just jokes, like
Mhm.
treating this whole my like I can just see him being like, oh my gosh, and just feeling I can't believe that I'm writing these kind of songs. Maybe it was a dark humor moment. I mean, that's the only way you can really get through some things sometimes. But that hit me hard too when I was just like, "Oh my gosh, I've never really even thought about that." But yeah, that next generation just really had, like I mentioned before, that was my parents' generation. Vietnam, like my dad, he always tells a story about how he knew that he was going to get drafted, and so he went into the National Guard in kind of the same way that Richard would. And my
Mhm.
dad is basically a Richard, and he's very bubbly, very happy, all the ideas. But he would tell stories about how some of his friends who actually got drafted and actually went to war and never came back the same. And he's just like, I can't even compare myself. And he never really would talk about being in the army because he's like, I can't compare myself to these people who actually went.
Mhm,
Um,
mhm.
because it's not the same. My experience was not the same, and I don't want to diminish somebody else's by saying that I think I understand what you went through because I don't. So, man.
So it's interesting because they still do have little projects here and there. Winnie the Pooh, like we're talking about, some of these projects seem very beneath
Oh,
Robert. And he's like, this is kids
yeah.
stuff. Yeah, I read this book and this is kids stuff. And I'm sitting here thinking, like, well, what do you think you've been doing this whole time? They did
Yeah.
Sword in the Stone and some of these songs and lots of very family friendly. And it just that he had looked down so much upon that. And it's just really funny to me that he
Oh,
thinks this is kid stuff because as I was preparing for this, I put on the the Sherman Brothers playlist in the car, and my little son in the back said, "Winnie the Pooh, Winnie the Pooh." And then as we got home this morning, the first thing he wanted to do, when I said, "What show do you want to watch?" and he said, "Winnie the Pooh." And he went, sat on the couch, stole his sister's Eeyore plushie,
oh,
and watched Winnie the Pooh. And it's just the legacy of Winnie the Pooh, which obviously goes back to the author, but also to the songs. That's what he wanted to listen to. That's what he wanted to watch. It's just, I wish he would have had. I mean, he obviously knew the impacts that it had. It was just funny to me his attitude towards it. But he's just a serious guy.
yeah. And it talked multiple times about how he wished that he could go and write his great American novel. Like he wanted to
Hmm,
write this
hmm.
very thought-provoking thing, and even in some of the discussions that he was having between Richard and Bob and Richard. So Bob is saying, like, it's like writing poetry. And Richard's like, no, it's not like it's like writing a song because you sing it. It's like they're back and forth. It was just like, oh gosh.
You know what was interesting?
But
They both had the musical background. Robert, although we don't really ever see him sitting down, tinkling away at the piano, he was accomplished at the piano and violin. And then he had, this writing background. And then Richard as well it just was shocking to me that they obviously grew up playing this and they had the ability. But for Richard, he was in college and then suddenly had this idea come to him, this melody, and then ran to a piano to write it down. And it wasn't until then where he really went and then built this career and studied and was able to help that spark in him flourish. And obviously it came from their genes. They had this musical quality from their dad, but also because he was a musician. And so he prepared them with the schooling and the lessons that they needed to build that foundation. And they were just good at it. Despite Robert seemingly at certain times, like not wanting to do this, he'd rather be doing other things. He was great at it. And it's hard to draw the line. Like, is this a Richard line or a Robert line? You can't, because it seems to be both of them together. And they, it's when you're listening to these songs, they have such these bombastic words that are, supercalifragilisticexpialidocious, but there's so many other examples of it reminds me of not Mencken, but of Howard Ashman in a way.
Yeah.
Yes. And that's why these songs are so memorable, because they don't hit the obvious. If you were to put in, maybe AI could do this now because it's able to study and learn from their stuff.
But these were so new.
Write me a Richard and Robert Sherman song. Yeah, it would come up with something, but because it's the human mind and they just were wired a different way, they were able to come up with these fun words and play on words, and just also with their music, it's quite a variety of genres and types and styles of music they were able to create. Sometimes they get really like these slow ballads, like in The Parent Trap with the mom as she's singing that "For one for now," whatever, however it goes. And
or Hushabye Mountain, where
they can hit a huge spectrum. Then they have the fun jazzy songs, and then they wrote for two of the greatest jazz musicians ever, Louis Prima in Jungle Book, I Want to Be Like You, but then also Louis Armstrong, their songs that he did for them. As I was listening to this, I mean, they were phenomenal and so versatile. They were not pigeonholed into one thing. If they needed to write a little ditty for a theme park, like It's a Small World, they did it. If they needed to write a ballad, they did it. They really were geniuses.
Yes. And there's just so many of those songs, as mentioned before, that like you and I know all of the songs to this.
Yeah.
And they mentioned how there were some people that were, they were watching Jungle Book and they proceed to sing the entire every song from every part of the Jungle Book. And I'm like, yeah, I could do that. Don't think I can't. And then later on, they go into Charlotte's Web, and Charlotte's Web has a wide variety as well. I mean, you're not in the Disney canon at the moment, but it's definitely something that I remember and have fond memories and fond feelings for. And it's just so crazy how around this time they're no longer at Disney, but they still have they're still working together, and but their families are still on different sides. And once again, I think it was just because like Robert's wife was not a fan. And then I think that really just kept the families apart. And it's like she had already died. And so they couldn't interview her, but they also didn't interview Richard's wife. So there are two people that were like, very crucial to this story that would have known more, but definitely weren't talking.
I think the timing of this, obviously it came to be when it came to be. I'm not sure when the cousins reconnected, but it seems much later in life, almost the 2000s, when they were coming together for some of these other things like the Chitty Chitty Bang Bang musical, Mary Poppins musical, whatever. But it would have probably been better to do this maybe 10 years before. It just seemed like this point Robert had really slowed down.
Yes.
And I can't read anything saying that he had a stroke or some sort of injury cognitively. However, they did say his son Steve said that he died of a stroke.
Uh-huh.
So that was the ultimate cause in 2012. And he was 86.
Wow.
But he was a lot slower. He wasn't as sharp as the brother. And that's, he's older, 3 years older.
Mhm.
But so, yeah. And there's the
I think
memory hides certain things. And because they're like, do you remember this when you moved out the brother, from the ex-wife? He's like,
yeah,
I don't recall it at all. But that was such a crucial, pivotal moment for the one.
right.
And according to you, you think maybe for him as well.
I think so. I think that these are moments where you just try to forget and you just try to move on.
Mhm.
And there's a lot of people who, when they go through very, very tragic or just tumultuous events where the body will actually, the mind will forget in order to save itself.
Yeah.
And so this is not an uncommon thing. I mean, it's not common, but in those situations, it is not uncommon. And yeah, I think his mind was trying to forget so much and just threw it away. You
Mhm.
know?
Mhm. Mhm.
I mean, there comes a point in time where once again, their opportunities are kind of drying up a little bit. And some of the people that were bringing them in for different projects were no longer maybe had died or had moved to different places. And so there was a moment where they had just been kind of working on random things. And Richard said, yeah, there was a couple days where he just didn't show up. And I was just like, okay, I mean, maybe he's just tired or sick or something. And then he shows up another time and then he's just like, I don't think we need the office anymore. And
Hmm.
they both said it was like an end of an era. And it was like, oh, that is
Another
sad.
part that was sad was the Alan Menken part where he says, "Hey,
Yes.
we are kind of doing our pitches for The Little Mermaid," and they just offhandedly mention, "Hey, the Sherman Brothers, the other room." And he's so excited because he knows the impact and the legacy of these
Yeah.
guys, and probably obviously looked up to them and admired them. And he's like, "Yeah, I mean, we're kind of just doing it just to, but we're implying that you guys are going to get the gig." And that was a really bittersweet moment for him. It was really sad because it was an end of an
We're
era
with
for him.
you now.
Yeah, it's like, oh,
Like as like
amazing. We're the up and coming. This is amazing for my career. And I can't wait. And we were built upon the backs of these guys, this studio.
right.
And then they didn't mention that at all. It would have been interesting to see the other side of that. Like, hey, did you
I
pitch
mean,
songs for The Little Mermaid? And how did that
yeah.
go? They were still kind of in the mix, but just ceremoniously.
Yeah, that's definitely an LA thing where it's just like we are moving on. We're like you're the new one. And it's just like
Hmm.
it's trying to I don't even know if they even realize what they're doing, but they're automatically trying to put people on teams and trying to separate people as if like they're the old thing and you're the new and here we
Hmm.
go. And in trying to raise somebody up, they have to pull other people down when like they could have just said, "Isn't that cool? They're over there." Like, I mean, this is a different project than you guys get this project, which is also cool, but like they're amazing. Like,
Yeah.
why do you have to like look at somebody as though they're always in competition?
Hmm.
Which I mean, yes, they are, is as in they're trying to get different jobs and get the job. But like just the attitude of LA is just that's what it is, and I don't like it. So anyway. And he mentioned that how that moment he realized like, oh wow, I am getting better, but also that this game is it doesn't matter how good you are because he
Hmm.
looked at them as heroes and was like, that is so amazing that they are there. And yet like knowing that no like all of my heroes I am going to be treated less than these guys probably. And that's kind of how Disney has been. They have these big moments, and I guess Hollywood in general, but they have these big moments with these different writers, with the Sherman brothers, and then with Alan Menken, and then with, you didn't have
The
Tim Rice in there for
Lopez's.
very long, but
Yeah.
yeah, the Lopez's. So you have these different eras where you have their pets, and then they just like shoot them out, like spit them out, like as if they're nothing, and it's just like that's really sad.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think of modern Disney. There was this opportunity. They came back for the Tigger movie and they won actually some awards for that and did a really good job. And that was 2000, I believe. And it was released theatrically and then obviously in DVDs, not under the Disney proper banner. It's not a Disney
Right.
canon film. But then they come back, and we talked about this in 2010 with the Winnie the Pooh film, and the songs were fine, but they weren't Sherman Brothers. And it just seemed like a really, really missed opportunity. And Lasseter was in charge at this time, and he was in this, and he understands the legacy. I mean, he would have been recording this just, a few years prior. And why not bring them back? I mean, were they so retired at that time? It doesn't appear so because, Richard came back and did Christopher Robin. There's been a few things he did in the 2010s, but maybe it was Robert at that point that had really closed up shop after that and wasn't really working. But how cool would it have been just to kind of like bridge that gap and just have a common thread to having some really fun Sherman Brothers songs. But alas, since the last time we recorded, I said, oh yeah, I haven't read the Winnie the Pooh movies or stories that we have. We're almost done reading those to my kids, and they love them, and it's just really fun. But
that's nice.
Good for you.
That is nice though. Like I think that this also comes to my mind as in who was working in LA for a long time, and he ended up getting cancer, and he never told anybody. He didn't tell anybody because he knew that if he told anybody, then he would stop getting work, and people would just assume that he's unavailable, and they don't want to and so you can't. It's like, no, the guy still has to work, but he's still alive, but he's just like, that's also something he's going through. So a lot of times I think that could have been a time when Bob maybe had moved to London. And so they if in somebody's mind, if you're trying to get a job done quickly within the, entertainment field, and they are not I will move my schedule around for you kind of a get, they're definitely going to be like, you have to be actively working and able to come in on a dime in order to get the job. And so it's interesting. I mean, I know that things have changed since COVID. Yeah, I've heard different people, especially voice actors, say that since COVID, they've gotten way more gigs because everybody just expects people to be able to do things via Zoom, and they don't expect them to be in LA at the moment. So I don't know. It's interesting how things shift, society shifts, and therefore people find work in different ways. But this is the point where Bob's wife dies.
And that seems to be the final straw, I guess. Straw that kind of breaks the camel's back, and he really can be relieved. And he goes on and moves to England, which is interesting because they're not from there. Their dad was Russian Jewish immigrant from Kiev. And I thought it was interesting with the dad, how they mentioned this American sound. He was one of the big three. It was George Gershwin, Aaron Copland, and then I think his name is Al Sherman. Which is wow. I mean, we don't even talk about Al Sherman. I need to research and start listening to all his songs. But that's this stereotypical American sound from the 20s and 30s, 40s. Was this core group of guys? Obviously, there were other people, that had role to play, but they called out these three. Phenomenal, really cool. Yeah. So he moves away, and then it's kind of shocking to Richard.
Yeah, it is very shocking. I mean, when you look at but
then at the same time, probably not surprised based on their relationship over the past few decades.
Based on the relationship, but also like why he would choose that place. It just seems more or it just seems more his vibe than LA. And LA Richard just wants to be in the game more, and that seems much more in the LA side, and Robert was just much more in the romantic era of his life, where he was just trying to get by as a widower, and just you can just tell that really hit him hard. And then it was soon thereafter where their boys, the cousins, they started getting together, and they said that it was getting together for the Mary Poppins premiere on Broadway.
And
they said, we hoped doing this movie, it would give our dads a chance to reconnect. And then not everything turns out to be like a Sherman Brothers movie. And it was just it hurt so bad.
You see them on the red carpet, and you think they'd be doing this together, but they're really walking the red carpet separately. Richard walks up from behind on Robert. Hey, bro. Just like I haven't seen you since high school sort of thing. And Robert's like, oh, hey, and they take their picture. And it's moments like that are hard to watch. But again, we don't know all what's going on, but it's sad nonetheless. But yeah.
It was a great movie. I'm glad I watched it.
Yeah.
And I'm glad I was able to kind of like look through my own life. These are the things. It's like it's hard to tell a sad story because you think that there's nothing good that comes out of it, but there is so much good that comes out of watching these things, the tragedies, because you can kind of avoid the tragedies in your own life, hopefully at least.
So I know that we have some voicemails, and I know that we are going long on this recording, but I thought it would be fun if we kind of go through quickly a lot of their songs.
Okay.
You have time?
I've got time, baby.
Okay. And I have it pulled up on Spotify. I'll include a link to the Spotify playlist for the Sherman Brothers songbook, as well as the link to purchase. It's awesome. Again, this is not a full list of everything they've ever done, but it's in order, which I appreciate. Nice. So yeah, let's just breeze through it as fast as we can. And first, we're starting with the Annette Funicello songs. The first one that really kind of got them was Tall Paul. Chalk on
the sidewalk, writing on the wall. Everybody knows it. I love Paul.
Okay, next one, Pineapple Princess. Again, her voice, so unique.
Pineapple Princess, he calls me Pineapple Princess all day as he plays ukulele on the hill above the bay. Pineapple Princess.
I love it.
And they didn't mention Flubber, but this is the Flubber song from The Absent-Minded Professor. They kind of made it seem like the first that they did was The Parent Trap. Maybe these are out of order, or maybe they were working on it initially, but it was released at different times. But here is the Flubber song.
Good morning, Professor. What are you doing today?
I'll try one more experiment, then I've got to have it made. I'll activate the rheostat, 2000 centigrade. I'll integrate component H, accelerate the phase. Now it's time to throw the switch 10 million gamma rays. 2 million?
Next, from The Parent Trap, this is the title song, title credits for The Parent Trap. I loved this song and this sequence.
Yes.
If their love's on skids, treat your folks like kids, or your family tree's gonna snap.
So to make 'em dig, first you gotta rig.
What do you gotta rig?
The Parent Trap.
Now, this is the Maureen O'Hara song, For Now, For Always. I'm gonna skip a little.
Love will stay as warm as summer, or come what may, the magic divine that...
I miss songs like that style.
That's a good one.
Get Together from The Parent Trap. Iconic.
Let's get together, yeah, yeah, yeah. Why don't you and I combine? Let's get together, what do you say? We could have a swinging time, baby.
And can I just say, Hayley Mills sounds exactly the same.
Yes.
Her voice has not really aged. I mean, she sounds like a woman, but she has this higher pitched voice to her.
I mean, she died. She's passed away now, but like I remember in her, as she was older, and she was like on Saved by the Bell, and it was just like, oh, you're definitely the same girl.
Next, The Wonderful World from The Wonderful World of Color, from The Wonderful World of Color. The Spectrum song. This is Professor Von Drake, Paul Frees, and I love this song.
yellow, green, red, blue, 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 red, purple, green, yellow, orange, red, 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 yellow, green, red, blue, 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 red, purple, green, yellow, orange, red, red.
From An Adventure in Color, the same thing. This is The Green with Envy Blues. I'm going to skip it.
I'm blue as I can be, green with jealousy. Look.
Next, Strum and Song from the Horse Masters. We did see a piece of this in there.
Hum, 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 strum and song. Oh, oh, oh. Hum, hum, hum,
Less
hum,
produced,
strum and song.
her voice.
Yeah. Yeah.
Next, from Symposium on Popular Songs, these next two will be from this. Although I dropped 100,000 in the market. Have you heard this one? I'd never heard this one, and this one's really fun.
Although I dropped 100,000 in the market, baby, I found $1 million in your smile. Yes, sir. Stocks.
I love it. I'm Blue for You, Boo 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 Boo. This is Skip Farrell, who you will recall, he does this boo 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 thing that's iconic to him from Ichabod. You might recognize this.
I'm blue for you. Boo 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 boo. What can I do? Boo 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 boo.
I love it.
That's cute.
Two songs up next. In Search of the Castaways, we have Castaway.
Castaway, castaway, trust in your star. You know I will find you wherever you are.
Next is Enjoy It. This is Haley Mills and Maurice Chevalier, which this was on one of the CDs.
Why cry about bad weather? Enjoy it. Each moment is a treasure. Enjoy it.
I like this song.
We are travelers on life's highway. Enjoy the trip. Each lovely twist and byway. Each bump and dip.
Okay, we have three from Summer Magic on the Front Porch with Burl Ives.
3 creaky wooden stairs, those squeaky rocking chairs. Ooh, when the day is through, is linger here on the front porch with you.
Next is Femininity. Another Haley Mills.
You must walk feminine, talk feminine, smile and beguile feminine. Utilize your femininity. That's what every girl should know if she wants to catch a beau.
So that song, I have to do the story right now. My uncle and I, we would always joke about if you had like one of the old 80s rockers come out and sing that song. And so it would just be like, you would have some, like, just think about it, like one of those rockers be like, walk feminine, talk feminine, small and big girl feminine. And then it's like, you always have to do two fists, or a one fist is the fist of sincerity. We would always joke around with that song of like, yeah, you gotta have like Twisted Sister or something come out and sing.
That's hilarious. Next is The Ugly Bug Ball, another Burl Ives.
Love it.
Once a lonely caterpillar sat and cried to a sympathetic beetle by his side. I've got nobody to hug, I'm such an ugly bug. Then a spider and a dragonfly replied, if you're serious and want to win a bride, come along with us to the glorious annual Ugly Bug Ball.
Okay, and their work doing Pineapple Princess served them well because they wrote all the songs for the Tiki Room. So here's just the title track.
Ole! It's showtime! In the tiki room, in the tiki room, all the birds sing words and the flowers grow. In the tiki room.
I'm sure we could sing every word of all of these songs in that one. And now It's a Small World. Okay, next up, we are only on song 20 of the 59. We're going to try to speed it along, but there's so many good ones. There's a Great Big Beautiful Tomorrow.
There's a great big beautiful tomorrow.
Okay, next up, I was going to try to do like the bits and pieces here. We'll be here forever. A Spoonful of Sugar from Mary Poppins. I think this is...
In a merry tune to toot, he knows a song will move the job along.
Next, Chim Chimmery.
Me chim chim chiree, a sweep is as lucky can be.
Next up, Feed the Birds.
Early each day to the steps of the bag, feed the birds, that's what she cries.
Next, Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. I loved Lassiter when Docious Fragicalibluffers. I'm like, yep. And he was like so impressed himself and no one else really was. I was like, I get it. I could do it too. I love you.
It's supercalifragilisticexpialidocious, even though the sound of it is something quite atrocious.
Okay, next up, Monkey's Uncle from The Monkey's Uncle. Okay, next, That Darn Cat from That Darn Cat. I'm sorry I have to yada yada these, but...
While the city sleeps, he knows every trick does, and he inspects so thoroughly. When he's on his rounds, nothing's out of bounds to...
Next, Winnie the Pooh from Winnie the Pooh and the Honey Tree. See, this was when it was just the little short.
Deep in the 100-acre wood, where Christopher Robin played.
Okay, next is Up, Down, Touch the Ground, and it says Jim Cummings, which Jim Cummings was not the voice of Winnie the Pooh during these. Did they re-record them and put them back in?
Maybe.
I gotta research this, but here we are.
Up, down, up. When I up, down, touch the ground.
Next, Little Black Rain Cloud.
A little black rain cloud hovering under the honey tree.
Okay, from Jungle Book, I Want to Be Like You. The Bare Necessities was not written by them, which I found interesting. Very good song. Lots of cool puns in there. It sounds like them, but it's not. This is the... I love that they recorded his band.
Now I'm the king of the swingers, oh, the jungle VIP.
Okay, sorry, we don't have more time. Trust in me.
Trust in me.
This is Sterling Holloway, excuse me.
Just in me.
Now we have My Own Home.
My own home, my own home, my own home, my own home.
We have 4 songs from The Happiest Millionaire. And because my child has woken up, we're just going to play one from this. We'll just do Fortuosity. Again, another...
Well, now, ain't this an elegant neighborhood? All the residents dress so fine. One day off the boat am I, with a job that's nearly mine.
Next, The Wonderful Thing About Tiggers from Winnie the Pooh and the Blustery Day.
The wonderful thing about Tiggers is Tiggers are wonderful things. They're
Next, Heffalumps and Woozles, also from that. Hey, what's going on here? Oh, I hit the button for shuffle. Haley, get out of here.
They're extraordinary, so better be wary.
Now, Rain, Rain came down, down, down from the Disney chorus. We love them. We need more Disney chorus in our life.
It's true.
The rain, rain, rain came down, down, down in rushing, rising rivulets.
I love the lyrics here. I'm going to stay on this.
Right into Piglet's. Poor Piglet, he was frightened with quite a rightful fright. And so in desperation, a message he did write.
He placed it in a bottle and it floated out of sight.
And the rain, rain, rain came down, down, down. So Piglet started bailing. He was unaware atop his chair while bailing he was sailing.
And the rain, rain, rain came down, 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 and the flood rose up, up, upper.
Who too was caught, so he thought,
I must rescue my supper.
So good. 10 feet off the ground from the one and only genuine original family band.
Be some magician designed the magic plan. He changed his wand.
Next, The Happiest Girl Alive from the same thing.
Or will I be alright?
Next, About Time from the same movie. I'm going to skip that one. We'll do Chitty Chitty Bang Bang next.
chitty bang bang, chitty chitty bang bang, chitty bang bang, chitty chitty bang bang.
So good. Hushabye Mountain from the same movie. Miss skip way up here.
By the key, the winds of night.
Me Old Bamboo.
On the beautiful Thames, you use a sturdy pole. To pretend their fair complexions, ladies use a parasol.
Aristocrats. This is the opening credits title track.
Which pet's address is the finest in Paris?
Scales and Arpeggios. This one I thought was fun because this was their life. Scales and
Do
Arpeggios.
me so do me do. Every truly cultured music student knows.
And then She Never Felt Alone. This is the
She could own because with us.
The Age of Not Believing from Bedknobs and Broomsticks. We're almost done.
Until at last you start believing.
Portobello Road.
Portobello
He's in a different key than me.
Portobello Road.
The Beautiful Briny. This is Beautiful Briny.
And the cod. Think we're rather odd.
I've skipped way too far to be.
Far below the rolling tide.
One Little Spark. This is a Disney Park song.
Everything that's new. One little spark lights up for you.
Making Memories.
Long before the old Model T, round about the turn of the century, folks discovered a barrel of fun, taking pictures by the light of the sun.
Next is Magic Journeys, also the Disney Studios chorus. Come on. This is Meet the World. This is the Tokyo Disneyland Park cast. Who's Lullaby from the Tigger movie? So we're really getting some big stretches here. I'm gonna fast forward.
Lullaby to the tune.
Oh, excuse me. Who's Lullaby?
In the tree, all I want
Whoopie Duper Bounce. The same
You
movie.
can't bounce the bounce if you can't even pronounce the bounce. Repeat after Tigger. Oh, loopy-dooper, loopy-looper, alley-ooper, bounce.
Your Heart Will Lead You Home. This is Kenny Loggins. And you know, Kenny Loggins has a famous song about Pooh Corner. And I just love that they brought him for this.
Yeah.
No, just think of your friends, the ones who care. They
And then the last one on here, just there's many more songs not included, but this is just Walt Disney and the Sherman Brothers singing. And it's cute. No! That was the last one, and then I accidentally hit next, and so it just picked a song randomly on.
There's a great, big, beautiful tomorrow shining at the end of every day. There's a great, big, beautiful tomorrow, and tomorrow's just a dream away.
Right, so from that, you got a little snippet of their repertoire and so many amazing, fun songs. There's lots of movies that I want to go back and watch.
I really want to watch
Disney
Summer
Plus.
Magic.
Mm-hmm. I want to watch The Happiest Millionaire.
Uh-huh.
So,
these ones.
With that, are we rating this? I mean,
no, I don't want to rate it necessarily.
We're not gonna
I
rate
think
it.
let's just do voicemails.
Let's get to voicemails.
All right, so first one we're going to start off with Jeremiah. Jeremiah sent a voicemail.
I still remember a summer gone by. Why was it over so fast? I still remember when we said goodbye. Why can't our summer times last? That's from Lila's theme from Snoopy Come Home by the Sherman Brothers. Hi, Rotoscopers. I cried when I found out Richard Sherman died. Because they're both gone, and there'll be no more songs from either Sherman brother, and they were so special to us. Richard Sherman was a gentleman, kind and sweet. I first saw him in a bonus feature in Winnie the Pooh. I loved him from then on. In the interview he did on your podcast, on the bonus video he did for Once Upon a Studio, a short you guys disliked, but I loved it. Favorite songs. Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious, Detroit from The Happiest Millionaire, Lila's theme from Snoopy Come Home, I Want to Be Like You, and this one from Charlotte's Web that I'll read an excerpt from. How very special are we for just a moment to be part of life's eternal rhyme. How very special are we to have on our family tree Mother Earth and Father Time. Okay, made it through without crying. Goodbye, Rotoscopers. You're the best.
Jeremiah, you're the best. When I heard this voicemail, I mean, I was weepy all morning because I just finished it around 5:30 a.m. And then I was listening to these songs. And basically from the moment that they talked about Walt's death, the last 30 minutes of the documentary, I was crying. And then I was crying as I was re-listening to these songs. I have not cried yet, surprisingly. So that prayer did work. But I loved that voicemail.
Yeah, thank you.
And I
definitely cried.
It reminded me of the D23 concert. So at the D23 Expo in 2013, they had an amazing special performance. This was a year after Robert died. So it's the Richard M. Sherman and Alan Menken, the Disney songbooks. They play all of the Disney classics you know and love from both of them. And so I'll include a link to it in the show notes. You can watch it, about an hour long, incredible performance. And, Once Upon a Studio, not that I hated it, it's just that I was disappointed in the animation quality.
Yeah.
On our next episode, we should do a mini review of the Once Upon a Studio short and give it its proper justice.
Okay.
Yeah. Since it's, important. Okay, next up is Pat.
Hi, my name is Kat. I'm calling from Los Angeles, listening to the latest episode, and heard your question about favorite Sherman Brothers songs. And it's funny because I was thinking about that the other day when I heard about the passing of Richard Sherman. And, of course, all of Mary Poppins comes to mind. But really, the first song that came into my head the moment I heard the news was the Tiki Room song. And it's kind of weird because even though I'm in LA and it's like right there, I've actually never even been to Disneyland. But when I was growing up in the Midwest, every summer when we would go on some vacation somewhere, my parents would play the Disney Classic CD in order to keep us quiet in the car. And that song is a constant earworm in a good way on like almost a daily for sure, daily level. So that's definitely the one that sticks with me. And it's a banger. So, remembering that one fondly. Thanks again for the podcast, and I hope you all have a great day.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Pat.
So we were on their Wikipedia page. It says their most famous song is It's a Small World. And I would think, you think of all these amazing songs, but it has to be true because the parks live on and because of their strong presence in some of these original, if not, soon to be added later, the Tiki Room and all of those songs are amazing and fantastic. And then obviously with It's a Small World and some of these other songs that have they're staples in Disney parks now. And they have I think it was 2010, they were commemorated on Main Street USA with a window pane to both of them for their incredible achievements at providing songs to the Disney parks.
Yeah.
Okay. Next up is Jazz DNA. That's our last one. And did you have a favorite Sherman Brothers song? We didn't talk about ours specifically.
Favorite Sherman Brothers song, I think for me is going to be. No, I don't.
I can't pick. I honestly cannot pick.
Don't make me choose.
That's how I feel.
It depends on the movie at that point. It's like you throw up a good movie and I'm like, oh yes, that one.
Here we go.
This voicemail is reserved for the Sherman Brothers tribute episode. I, Jazz DNA, or Animation Dreamer on Instagram, would like to share some words, a eulogy, if you will, to the late Richard M. Sherman. He was the first celebrity, songwriter, and Disney legend that I ever met. Our only interaction took place at the 2011 D23 Expo, where his son Greg and nephew Jeff were promoting their documentary, The Boys. I was almost 10 years old at the time. Earlier that year, I developed both a hyperfixation on Disney and an interest to work for the company, initially as an Imagineer. When my mom told them about my goal, they wished me luck on my endeavors. As a Roto rookie at the time, I didn't know much about the who's who in the animation business, so I couldn't comprehend who Richard was or why he was at that signing. I just assumed he was a relative that came to support Greg and Jeff. It wasn't until 2013 when I attended the Disney Songbook concert that I realized how much he contributed to the animation studio. I loved how he wrote the theme song for Winnie the Pooh, which I always sang as a toddler. I felt so guilty for not knowing his significance then, that I had false hope that I'd see him again, just to say how much I appreciated his music over the years. It was heartbreaking to see Richard wither away in the last decade of his life. By the time he worked on the Once Upon a Studio short, his hair was already white and he sounded like he already lost his voice. But now I'm at peace to know that he has reunited with both Walt and his brother Robert. May they all get their eternal rest. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Jazz DNA, thank you for that. It was beautiful. The winds of time, Mother Earth and Father Time. Oh gosh, why you gotta do that to me now? But yeah, this is not lethargic, cathartic. But it was a good time. So I'm glad we were able to go back and go through these.
All right. That is all that we have for this episode of the Animation Addicts podcast. This is a this is a much longer episode for us. And I feel it was due. There was so much to talk about. I mean, and we're only scratching the surface about the legacy and life of these two amazing songwriters and people, Richard Sherman and Robert Sherman. We miss you. And I'm grateful that you are still able to live on with us through all of your incredible songs that you contributed to movies and parks and TV shows and so many more things. You will be greatly missed. Any last words, Chelsea?
No, I think we got it all.
All right. Let us know your thoughts. If you have any additional thoughts, we'll be happy to include them in future episodes. Send us voicemails, rotoscopers.com/voicemails, or give us a call at 406-646-6575. If it's easier, you can just do a voice note recording on your phone, email it to us at contact@rotoscopers.com. And with that, until next time, we are the Rotoscopers.
Good enough for me.
Good enough for me. The Disney era, from 1961 to 65. Hold on. I got a child that needs. Do you want to watch another show? What do you want to watch? Thomas? Let's put it on. Be right back. The good thing about, never really letting your kids watch shows is that when you have to record, you put on a show and they love it.
Woohoo!
Like, I'm free. Okay. Chimmy bang bang. I can't say the word. Chimmy bang bang. And chitty. I was like, it's not a chimichanga. We're flying on this chimmy. Ooh. FYI, I feel a child running around.
I feel it. I feel it in my bones.
I don't feel him. I hear him. Oh, hold on. I have a child here who is bringing me macaroni and cheese. He thinks, yeah, go finish your show and then I'll make it for you, okay? I'll be right back.
Peter's awake.
Peter's awake? Great. I'll come get him in a second too. Okay. Dang it. Okay, go. Here, Peter can take it. Go take it. Go build him a track, okay? Go.
I'll mount him a Daniel Tiger track.
You want to watch Daniel Tiger?
No, I don't know.
No, he's not interested in any more shows. He's like, okay. Yeah, we'll have the macaroni and cheese. Normally that's our Sunday meal. We don't ever have it except for Sunday after church, but today's a different day. Okay, James. Hey.
Desperation.
I'm like, everyone get out of here.
Whatever, sure.
Okay, hold on one second. I'm taking my headphones off. I'm going to escort them. Here, let's get you a drink. I have your bottle. Come this way. Yeah, let's get all our bottles. Okay, hold on. Sorry, I have more people coming in. Okay, hold on, guys. We are like almost done. You want to put a hat on? Okay, go out, please. Go out real fast. Peter, come this way. Can you show him where the Woody is and put the hat on the Woody?
Well, it's in the car.
It's in the car? Can I go get it out of the car? I'll get it. It's right there. Show him the Woody. Go find the Woody. You get Jesse.
You've been listening to the Animation Addicts podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe and be sure to leave us a 5-star review. We're available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you want to help spread the word, be sure to share the podcast with your friends on social media. Just don't forget to tag us at Rotoscopers on Instagram and use the hashtag AnimationAddicts. For all the links and full show notes for this episode, go to rotoscopers.com/podcast. Now, if you still can't get enough for your animation fix, be sure to subscribe to us on YouTube and visit rotoscopers.com for more animation news, reviews, and interviews. Thanks for listening.